Hotel. As permission from the elder to continue. Thank you, sir. So, I move this since we're in Palmetto State. It's around time of European holiday season. I guess that's why we got this plant right here. I know we're in the American South right now, but this plant right here is the first time we pour libation into a plant I recognize from Sunday school. Get down. My grandmother would know this plant right here, so let us indeed start with that, brother. You said I shared that right there. In fact, we might open up with all the black women ever been. I shared. Yes, because they know this plant well. So, with that in mind, we would just observe what Papa Jacob's brothers, Papa Jetty should really could say is a brief, profound moment of silence. We pour our first libation to that creative force that animated all of us. That force that is the force we cannot see, but we know exists because we exist. As we know, our ancient Egyptian, our Kemetic ancestors would say it is our moon, although it is the source of our life, power, and health. Ashe. We go into how the animating force has chosen to express itself throughout the timeless time and the endless space that we can neither conceive of or begin to name, but we know that we exist in it, and in our limited understanding, we continue to build our awareness of the fact that while we don't exist outside of it, we continue to expand and move through time in it. According to the expression of that energy that found itself on this small spinning ball of stardust that somehow came into time and space out of that energy, Ashe. And we pour into the people who began to emerge out of that spinning ball and separate themselves in visible form. Those who were the living creatures who came out of that dust, out of that ball, an expression of the divine that we call humanity, Ashe. For our ancestors who were the first of that expression of divine called humanity, the Africans who came out of Africa and populated the entire world, Ashe. Their children, our ancestors who stayed on the continent of Africa and having populated the world, those who remain, being the oldest humans on the planet, began to express themselves and then record their expressions and pass them on from generation to generation to generation. Ashe. Mothers and fathers of everything you will ever think of in this society, everything, reading and writing and mathematics and architecture and ways to cook and prepare meals and ways to educate each other through time and space. Ashe. Our children, our ancestors who having combined themselves and passed on that information then began to move it from mouth to ear to hand to page. Those who invented writing systems around the whole continent of Africa, particularly in the Nile Valley, we put our ancestors that we call those in Kemet and Kush and one more top of Ashe. Those around the Senegambian region, those in southern Africa, those in the central of Africa, the Congo region, those in the Sahel, those who found themselves in the Maghreb near the Mediterranean, those on the east coast of Africa who began to inscribe and pass on their knowledge. Ashe. Pour into their children, our ancestors who having established themselves millennia before and having migrated through all the regions of Africa, found themselves confronted with their children who no longer recognized them, the descendants of their family who had walked out and adapted to the other parts of the world. Ashe. Our ancestors who had been set upon by their children who no longer recognized them were then forced into the Western Hemisphere to re-engage with the other Africans who had walked out and become what we now call the Aborigines or First Nations of the Western Hemisphere. Ashe. And to our ancestors who then, having been confronted with this poison being spread by their children who no longer recognized them, who commingled with the First Nations, began to resist their children who no longer recognized them. Ashe. The names we know and the names we don't know, the names who resisted in the Western Hemisphere, Ganga, Zumba, and Palmares. We pour to Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Henri Christophe in Haiti. We pour to the Maroons of Suriname. We pour to the Africans who resisted in Central America, Zumbi. We pour to the Africans like Yanga in Mexico. We pour to the Africans who resisted in Spanish Caribbean, in the Dutch Caribbean, and all the Africans who resisted all throughout the hemisphere. Ashe. For the direct bloodline ancestors of those who resisted in the places that are familiar more to the people who ended up in this part of the world. For those Africans who were abducted by the Spanish, who Spanish said we will not enslave Africans in North America. We'll just go back to the Caribbean. I said, a century later, to those 20 and odd Negroes who now, as the people have seen fit to try to recognize who in 1619 were part of a sea jacking between the English, the Portuguese, and the Spanish, who found themselves in Port Comfort, Virginia. I said, our ancestors who resisted their way out of enslavement in Virginia, who resisted their way out of the experiment that John Locke put together called Carolina, seemed to split into North and South Carolina. We owe to our ancestors who resisted in the places like Maryland and New York and in Maine and in Rhode Island and outlying plantations. I said, every ancestor who resisted, either in her hand or in her heart, to the evil woman who poisoned James Madison's grandfather in Virginia. I shake. Denmark, Beatty, and Gabriel Prosser. I shake. Mentor named for her Khan ancestors, who we call Harry Ross Tucker, who not only resisted but went back and liberated many Africans. I shake. The ancestors of every African who wanted to resist in their feet but had to do it in their heart, who prayed for this generation to come and be those who are now convened here in South Carolina, to not only remember them but take the next fight forward. I shake. In fact, now we pour to our direct bloodline ancestors. We pour to the women and men who gave birth to the women and men who gave birth to the women and men who gave birth to every African in this sacred space that we are calling in. And so we ask now that everyone, in their mind and their heart, or out of their mouth, name the bloodline ancestors who made it possible for all of us to be here today.
Let hear something in the news or reparations feels like this hot new thing, but I thought it would be really important for my students to hear from our elders in terms of this issue of reparations, and we've been talking about restorative justice. We have the great pleasure of having one of our international elders of ASCAC with us, Dr. Mariba Kelsey. His work is just phenomenal, and he has students that are here with us, and so I first want to introduce Dr. Kelsey. Thank you so much for being here with us. And then I also want to introduce Dr. Bill Dunn, who in so many very small ways, when we come together and meet with the Catalyst in Bongi, there are all these ways in which he's sharing his experiences with me that just kind of become this wind that just carries me just a little bit further. And so I want to introduce Dr. Bill Dunn. Thank you for being with us. And Baba Benton was visiting with my students just last week. He came to deliver a message to me, and I was like, hey, come on in and talk to the students. And so the students got a chance to write about his visit on their Mbangi forums. And so he's another person that is a member of the Catalyst Mbangi that, again, inspires me to continue to do the work that I'm doing. And so we're really blessed to have him at South Carolina State next door. He's taking a little bit of a break, but he'll be back in full effect in January. So welcome, Dr. Joe Benton. And then on my left, your right, we have our students here, Stefan Boykin and Indira Lessington and Nia Richard. These are students that are in the seminar for African and African American Studies, and they have some questions for our elders, so I'm going to get out of the way. I'm so sorry. Before the students actually go into the questions, we have the great pleasure of having Baba Mariba Kelsey kind of frame this discussion around reparations for us. So we want to actually start with him and some things that he wants to share with us, and then the students will ask their questions. Sorry.
First, I want to say that we have had a great day so far, and I really appreciate the day because Dr. Johnson just laid out things in detail. He's such a detailed person who just can refer to things as if they were right now. And I think that was marvelous, and so I just applaud him for this morning. And then I want to applaud Stefan, Brother Stefan, for last night when he laid out such detail what he's done on his poster. And I commended him for it, and I hope he will go forth and do it even more. Hope he will go forth and do even more, because we need our young scholars to begin to think about things before they are 94 like me. And so I commend him, and in fact I want to just make a side comment right now to say that I think that ASCAC has an obligation at this point in time to begin to have a youth corps that ranges from elementary school and through our high school. And I would challenge ASCAC to consider that. I hope we can do that begin to do that in our planning sessions. Vice President. Because, we're falling behind with we're complaining about our young people not knowing, and yet we're not doing our job with them in a generation. I want to start then with I'm writing a book about African genius that I want to, I'd like for all of us, just everybody in the room just stand and repeat after me. I want to get this little book is out, will be out right shortly. I'm a genius.
I'm a genius.
My ancestors were geniuses.
My ancestors were geniuses.
My ancestors have made me a genius.
My ancestors have made me a genius.
And all that I think, say, and do,
all that I think, say, and do,
I must declare myself a genius.
I must declare myself a genius.
Now, I want to stop just a minute, because what I often see is our failure to do that for ourselves. And I think that it's so important for us to begin to do that for ourselves, and for our young people to see us doing that for ourselves, and really declare, not saying I know everything, but at least I have something that I'm a genius, and we should call for each other to put our hands together to manifest that genius as one body rather than an individual.
Right. Yes.
I am a genius.
I am a genius.
Whenever I'm myself,
I
practice my geniusness.
I practice my genius.
And do great things.
And do great things.
My decisions, all of my thoughts, choices, and deeds.
All of my thoughts, choices, and deeds
Must express my genius.
must express my genius.
I am a genius.
I am a genius.
My decisions must always be in the best interest of myself,
My decision must always be in the best interest of myself,
my family, my people, and my God.
and my God.
Only then will I and everyone know that I'm a genius.
Only then will I and everyone know that I'm a genius.
I am a genius.
I am a genius.
At all times.
At all times.
My geniusness must reflect my culture.
My genius must reflect my culture.
My genius must serve my God.
My genius must serve my God.
My genius must make me be one in love
My genius must make me be one in love
and harmony with my family.
and harmony with my family.
My genius must protect my people.
My genius must protect my people.
Yes, at all times.
At all times.
I must declare excellence.
I must declare excellence.
Because I'm a genius.
Because I'm a genius.
Okay.
Attitudes, awareness, action, and final thoughts. I'm sure that these comments are not going to cover all of those, but I want to give this framework because I think it's important that we look at reparations and that has been among us for quite some time, but we have not come to a consensus on all of it, which I will expect later on. We've not come to consensus about what it is for all of us, and we need all of us. And we need to talk about it more than we have talked about it, so that we're all focusing together. African reparations have been discussed and championed by many different individuals and groups across the Americas, and perhaps across the world. This writer feels that it is important to acknowledge that there are groups that differ in their sincerity, knowledge, and intent or purpose for promoting or highlighting African reparations. Some of the individuals and groups are well-grounded, serious planners, factually sound, collectively organized, and action-oriented. There are others who may be using African reparations for economics, political, and even social purposes. Some confine African reparations to Africans in the United States, and some confine just for those they have ABOS, Africans born who have provided being slaves. So it's important that we know that there are different groups, people that have different purposes for reparations. But even after we identify all those different groups, I think it's important that we begin to put them under one umbrella. Now that's going to take some doing, right? Because we've been accustomed to having difference in opinion and accepting it as such. In fact, the matter is, we have been part of this continued struggle has been with the acceptance of one thing which says, let's agree to disagree. Which I think is the most foolish thing that we could ever put in place. Our thing ought to be, so let's agree to agree. Now that does not preclude me having differences of opinion. it does say is my goal is to come to agreement. Now, some may not be able to get all the way to that agreement. But if we're aiming for that, at least we have the right target. The target of disagreement is what the enemy wants.
Yes.
And I think we need to be clear about that now, because over and over we face that. In the struggle of thinking about this, I worked out a little formula that I shared with my daughter. In fact, I shared it with the study group too, the Atlanta study group. And that formula said that unity plus African unity plus African power equals African victory. I was sharing that with my daughter, Reba, who you and she said to me, that seemed to be bringing us to a stagnant position. She said that African unity geometrically moves to African power, which geometrically moves to
Exponentially.
Oh.
Exponentially.
Well, see, isn't it wonderful to have who can so gracefully correct you? Because you see, when we talk about the exponential, then we're talking about something that continues to be developed over time and continues growing under different circumstances at different time periods.
Yes.
And so it becomes important. And so that we have to accept that kind of formula. That formula, we started it. We managed to develop that even further. But the major thing that's involved is we have as one of the major components under whatever we're doing, we have that unity as a goal and coming to agreement as a goal as well. One might wonder why am I so interested in this at my age. Well, I'm interested because I know that if we don't begin to do it now, do something like this now, that now Reba and her children, and my grandchildren and great-grandchildren and so forth will be struggling with the same issues, and I don't want to see them have to do that. Well, before I can make my comments, though, I want to commend brothers and sisters who have been in this struggle for some time, and because we have a history that we got a little bit of it even this morning, where we know that brothers and sisters have been in the struggle of reparation for a very long time. And we ought to commend those brothers and sisters. I first knew about it at the Gary, Indiana conference. And that was the first time I knew anything about it. And I've seen groups over and over continue, but not have the agreement that I'm talking about. And so I think that it's important that we begin to look at that. We can begin to know that that there are several things that we need to pay attention to. First, we need to pay attention to the fact that we need the unity plank underneath, and we need to work toward that. The second thing is that we need to know that there are at least two other parts to reparation. One has to do with the self-reparation, self-repairing, and the other one has to do with the payment for it. Now, I want to share some things about the self-repairing because I think that's a very important issue that has not been explored like I would like to see it be explored. Anyway, self-repairing says that we're not complaining anymore about where we are. What we're doing is doing the assessment of where we are and deciding what we need to do to repair ourselves. Because there are some things that we need to do, I think, that we will discover that we can do. And then the second part of that has to do with how do we get what kind of repayment, what are the rightful repayments that we need to ask for and demand, because we know what we can repair and what we know what we ought to be asking for. If it's land, like we formerly discovered, then we ought to be asking for it under that unified principle that I've just suggested to you, and then and we know that we're doing this part. because when we ask for the reparations, then we also have to know what we're asking for, how we're going to distribute it, and how we're going to maintain it. So I'd like to put out just those few things for a framework for us to discuss and have the students and other panelists begin to talk about how they see it. This is how I've seen it over time, and I've grown to know that we're not at stalemate, but what we are is at a point where we need to begin to unify, organize, and do some self-assessment so that we can begin to know what we're asking for in a more general way, and know how we're going to distribute it once we get it, and how we're going to make it be ongoing, and move us up to a point that we are shooting for, as opposed to what somebody else. And finally, I just say that this has to be done in terms of our interpretation. I recall that reparations really is a word that was imposed after World War II for the Jews. And so it's important that we begin to say, what is it that, do we want this? Do we want the restriction of what that term applies to us? If we don't, then we have to come up with use our own cultural framework to decide what it is specifically. Now I hope this is not taken to suggest that I'm criticizing anyone or any movement that's in existence. What I hope is adding to what is being done now and saying that here's some other things that I think we need to consider.
So one of our first questions that we wanted to ask you guys was, what do you think reparations for, sorry, make sure I'm getting it right. What do you think reparations for slavery should include? And then what do you think reparations for the Jim Crow segregation should include?
This is one time, you always wish you could say, I turned to my elders. And when you sit up front with them, and I'm the youngest of the elders up here, and I think many times when we start talking about reparations for slavery, we are limiting what we should be getting. We are limiting what we should be getting. Slavery, well, first let me give you some groundwork on reparations. Quiet as it's kept, we've always had reparations in this world. This is nothing new. In 1920, the Hawaiians wanted their land back. The legislature of Hawaii said, you can have your land back, but you gotta get in line. So now they got a line that goes all the way out to 2099 for people to be repaid for the land that was stolen from Hawaii. Native Americans, y'all all know that story. They ended up getting what is tantamount to about $20,000 per person as a Native American. But they made more money off of one casino than they made off the reparations from the United States. So reparations is not always fair. We need to understand that the word reparations comes from way back in the Middle Ages, because every time you lost the war, you had to pay reparations to the victim. It's only been lately that the vanquished get the money from the people who win. So the whole notion of reparations, we have to rethink it. It's not something that just came up about slavery. It's something that's been going on for generations, ages. And basically looking at those forms of reparations that have happened over the years to give us a broader understanding of what reparations is.
I'm next.
I yield to my elder.
Bernie helped me a lot with a lot of things. And he's heard me say this before. All of us have our role. I was a school educator, so I'm not a historian, not into that. I was always at war with the presidents that had been in. And Bernie would always say to me, they doing what they do. That's their role. And so I'm the odd man out. It's hard for me to think about reparations. I can't, in my mind, do that. I don't think white folk gonna give us anything. And so I even have problems with the idea of asking for it. I can't say it in front of students, but I really want to say it. Every time I look at this guy who wrote Iceman's Inheritance, and when I read that material, and when I look at the two cradle theory, and look at who people actually are, that ethos, as Marimba would call it, it's hard for me to. And so what, for me, I think we have to have more organizations like this. In a way, if I had not had Vivian Counts back there and she introduced me to ASCAC, I'd probably be dead. Because, you know, growing up, I'm 80, and when I met him, I just couldn't. And look at him in '94. I've been bragging about being 80, and I mean, this brother walking around the way he looked at 94. Now I told him I have a new goal there. I want to be like him at 94. I hope I get there. But it's, you know, I can't frame my mind like that. You know, I'm always thinking about what you were doing at Howard. How he tried to institutionalize a freshman program for all freshmen, where he would, I mean, I don't know if any of you saw it. When I looked at it, I said, is he really doing this at Howard? I mean, he put in a program that would change the psyche of students in terms of how they see themselves, what they would like to pursue, gaining a purpose in terms of where they're going. And you know, I worked at a place where I watched students come in and they had no idea. And so for me, I spent my time trying to figure out how to institutionalize a lot of things, and none of them worked. But I was just talking to some brothers a few months ago, but I think one of is so important is that we help students understand this money, power, status thing is not nation building. This thing of I rather than we is not nation building. The system that we live in is all about I, me. Donald Trump, my God. I mean, I knew that they were awful, but I didn't know, I had no, I'll be honest with you. When I see it like that, I'm shocked that white folk could be like that as human beings. But we have to somehow get our culture. Our culture is so rich. Just think about this country if we weren't here. I mean, seriously, what would it be like if we weren't here? Well, no, but you know, since I was an athlete, I often say to students, can you look at the Celtics back there when they were winning all those championships? Now look at a high school, junior high school team now. Look at the skill level between the two.
No, sir.
What we put in the, white folk getting rich off of us. I mean, rich. But not just that. Just think about Coltrane and the music we play. I mean, the stuff that we do is awesome. We are geniuses.
Yes, sir.
The problem is, it drives me nuts. We don't know it. And in our schools, when we try to institutionalize things where that will be permanent in our schools now. Money, power, status. That rules. But I think one thing is so important though, and I think this is what's going to really help us. Each one of us become the best we can be. Each one of us become very conscious Because every day we do things that we're not aware of that are really unconscious in terms of African-centered thought.
Yes, sir.
We participate in this stuff just like they do, but we're unconscious of it.
Yes, sir.
But when we have these kind of sessions, I think, this helps us bring balance, be in harmony with the all. Be like the old Africans. Be like the ones that, like the brother talked about this morning. And he mentioned my old president. I graduated from Morehouse. And I used to listen to Benny Mays. I lost 6 hours of credit because I wouldn't go to chapel. But every Tuesday, I was there. And I even,
All right now. Take your time. Take your time.
I even read the charge
Come on, sir.
that he gave me. He used to give every graduate a charge. You have no choice but to be a servant of the people.
Come on.
I have to stop there.
Yes, sir. Yes. All right.
I'm about to ask you all some questions pertaining to awareness of the HR 40 bill, awareness of the House of Representatives, HR 40 bill, starting in 1989 when it was first proposed by John Conyers.
Again, let me make sure everybody understands the framework. Everybody else was getting reparations all over the place. Hawaiians, Native Americans, Jews, you name it, they were getting it. Conyers basically felt one of the problems that we had, which I think was a mistaken idea, but it was an idea. The idea was, let's study the Negro problem or the black problem in this country so that we can show beyond reasonable doubt that you should be able to have or give reparations. Well, the Native Americans never had these long studies. The Jews never had these long studies. The Hawaiians never had these long studies. And I can go down the laundry list. When World War I happened, quick example. When World War I happened, rich folks in this country funded it. The only people who got reparations after World War I was rich white people. The United States government has never got a nickel of repayment because of World War I. Now, here we are, 2019, talking about and trying to resurrect a study of whether black folks are in disrepair. Black folks never had a chance to be repaired. Okay, so they were just using the term that the brother in the back was saying, repair. Which is like total cars. Yeah, it looks like it costs more to fix us than to basically just let us be like we are and just let us die out somewhere. It will cost $10 trillion per year for the next 30 years to repair whatever you want to call it. Okay? $10 trillion a year. Where I get this formula, the ex-president of Benedict College used to be an economist. And when I was studying economy, I studied his formulas on reparation. The nice thing was, back when he wrote the studies, it was like $1 trillion. That's wrong. Because we are some foolish people now. And we need to be repaired. And the thing is, we made it possible for America to be America. They're rich because we made them rich. They prosper because we made them prosper. They have a culture because we gave them one. And yet we've never been repaid or repaired. So when we start talking about Kanye's bill, I understand what he was trying to do, and it made a whole lot of sense. Because, you know, if you were to walk down the street and ask the average black American, can you tell me a little bit about reparations? They'll look at you like you're crazy. They have no idea what you're talking about. So basically what I'm saying is that this is a great group. That's why I always love ASCAC, because you bring together types of minds that are also going to be influencing hundreds of thousands of people across this country. And we do it as the wild thing about it is we get paid for doing that. We get paid for enlightening our people. So these conferences are about enlightenment. But to move forward, we have to move beyond the study phase of this proposition and prepare.
I don't know whether we're foolish or not, but what I do know is that we have not taken the time to do the assessment that we need to do about where we are in terms of the situation that we find ourselves in. So we don't always make the best decisions simply because we haven't taken the time to agree on what our status is. And so the legal aspects of making a law sometimes don't hit the target as they might. For example, maybe the government has one responsibility in the payment for repairs. It may be corporate world has another responsibility. It may be that the religious world has another responsibility. And so, but since we have made the assessment about where we are and who has done the damage, we don't always target the right people for the payment that referred to in HR 40.
I really don't have anything to add to that. We know who did it.
How about that?
We know why they did it.
Yes, sir.
And am I gonna sit here and think that they feel bad about it? No. They got rich. They still getting rich.
Yes.
But I do think I always remember Johnny in the crowd. God must have had something special for us. We must be special people. No group of people in the history of the world has ever had as much done to them as we have, and we still stand.
Right.
So the three of you have discussed your awareness of the HR 40 bill as well as other forms of reparations given to other groups in America. But of what successful restorative and healing strategies are you aware of that you would suggest to young people?
Anybody want to say that first? See, that's the disadvantage of being the youngest elder, because they all say, go ahead, tell them. There are, as Brother Kelsey has said, it is important to understand that we have to have a multiplicity of strategies. That's number one. Number two, I think we have a special something we need to give our children. And we can do that with fair alacrity. And that is that as part of the repair, we have to make our children aware of the 2,000 seasons in this world. When things started going crappy, when it started going up and down, all this kind of stuff, but we cannot stop or start with American slavery.
That's right.
We have to start with many things, including the colonization of mind. We have to stop and think about all the things that our land that we gave up, all of those things, and we have to connect our children to their land of origin their languages of origin, their culture of origin, and their history of origin. Our children, if they're connected with that, the next thing is very logical to them. What the hell went on? The question we have got to begin to ask ourselves is, how can we allow our children to go to these schools and they don't teach their history? How can we allow them not to teach our culture? How, and we're paying money. I'm paying a man not to teach my culture. That's crazy. All right? So we need to stop that. Here's what's, I was down here last week, and as always, I like to roam around campus and see how they are. Many of our children do not know that lift every voice and sing means that you stand up. I stood up, and they looked at me like I was crazy. What is this old crazy man stand up here looking like something off the street, standing up while somebody is singing lift every voice and sing? But don't feel bad, Claflin. Last year, in one of my classes, one of the students said, Mr. Benton, you know we all came over on these boats. Now, how is it that we volunteered to be slaves?
Volunteer.
Exact words. Exact words. How can we allow our children to be in that kind of shape? How? How? See, and it makes me sick to think about it, that we, when we start arguing about this whole issue of reparations, there are some things we can do for free. The for free is we teach ourselves and then we teach our children. Don't get in the process of teaching ourselves. Go to the next step. Our children have to know that they did not come over here on Club Med. All right?
Well, I think we're right. I think we're on the right track. On the right track, because I think that it's really important that we help ourselves. Now, I'm not going to say our children. Now, help ourselves shift our focus from fiscal capital to human capital.
Yes, sir.
Because our real capital is human capital. And if I'm not trying to diminish the value of fiscal capital, but what I am saying is that the more valuable capital is human capital. Therefore, it's important for us to say, well, what can we do about raising our human capital to where they feel powerful? And one of the ways that we had started back in the 80s that I think that as we broke up our communities began to break up, is we started rites of passage, African-centered rites of passage, which I think is so important that we begin to, that goes from the elders down through all generations. So many of the rites of passage just focus on the young people as if we as elders already knew. We need to make sure that whole intergenerational change is understand that we're working to raise human capital to the place where human capital can command whatever medium of exchange they want to have to command.
How do we heal? Is that part of the question?
What healing strategies?
What healing strategy? Whoa. That is really hard. In my lifetime, I've seen us do a lot of things, and we build some institutions and we lose them. I think integration hurt us. That's just me.
Yes.
We took care of our children. I grew up in the projects in Atlanta, and when I was 7 years old, I walked to school all the way over to Overthorpe on Marsh Brown campus at 6. Nobody bothered me. I had no problems. I walked all the way back over to Peter Street. That's about at least 5 miles. Could you do that now? We have lost a lot in our communities. And I used to see it year by year when I was a Benedict. And I know, I was thinking to myself, students are lucky to have you here, Dr. Adams. They are. We just don't have enough people right now. But, y'all gonna be bad, right? All right. But that's serious though. And the stuff that Dr. Carr is doing at Howard, that's just awesome. But we need more people. Because the more we win, the more we lose. And so we got to keep doing. ASCAC is golden. It really is. The work that the people do who come through ASCAC is just unbelievable. I meet people all over the country and look at what they're doing and say, wow. And so I'd be encouraged, but then I come back in the community and look at some of these folks that I go back to my old school and I'm thoroughly disgusted. But I've heard that a lot of things happen here at Claflin. But I think we have to develop strategies within our own institutions. And it's kind of hard. One of the things that Bernie, Derek, and some other brothers have done is start your own church. So that you can start changing the mind of how people view God. And that's awesome, that. Ooh, Lord. You know, that is, whoo. I think that's one of the things that's really wiping us off the map. That's just me. But we have to, all of us, we have to be part of that healing strategy. We have to help them and give them as much. And I hope they're just taking in all of this. Because the speaker you had this morning was awesome. And he works. He's in just in terms of giving you concrete knowledge and information so that you understand what's going on around you. And I don't think the average person, not students, really have a grasp of what's happening around them. I'll keep going on.
For the last section, we are talking about action. And the first question I have is, describe your involvement and leadership roles, if applicable, in African-centered organizations.
Well, when Brother Carr over there, he came through something we had, African Center for Study and Worship. I think that every city needs to take charge of itself and have something like that. Because the city structure didn't like it. Policemen would watch it. Many parents didn't like it, but they appreciated it because they would say, that's my African Center, but they would stay away from it. But they would bring people to see it because they appreciate it. Now, I think that we need something like that all over this country, where we, as OC says, where we take charge, and it's not under the command of anybody but ourselves. And we need to take charge, make sure, correct some of those things that they get, the miseducation that takes place, in whether it be a spiritual institution or an educational institution or even a medical institution. Because there's so much of that going around until we're confused that we don't know what is right and what is wrong, because we have no institutional leadership, maybe I should say, little institutional leadership that's teaching, and where somebody can come and ask a question and get at least a cultural-based answer.
Oh, gosh. This is one of the hardest questions because, I don't believe in bragging on myself. And this is one of the questions. Well, what you been doing? Let me say this. I was the 11th president of the National Association of Black Social Workers, which is the largest self-helping organization or self-help organization in this country that's designed for black folks, organized by black folks, paid for by black. We do not accept money from the federal government, the state government, only out of the back pockets of black people. We use, while I was president, we used, only black people. But anyway, the largest, all you know, it's like the gathering of black clans. But the bottom line is this. We used during my tenure the ASCAC as our think tank. I couldn't think of any finer people. So I would have every year folks who were members of ASCAC's board, come and address 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people, bar none, for 4 years. We were one of the premier African-centered organizations. I now chair the Organization of African Unity for the state of South Carolina, which I have our esteemed chairman here. He's the president. I can't even keep that stuff straight. Tona, stand up, Tona. This is my proverbial son. He's also a social worker, which is interesting. But we have set in motion a plan to unite Africans, African Americans, African Caribbeans. I even see some members of our board. Hallelujah for these folks. But when you think about it, this is one of the things that you do for African-centeredness. You basically work toward unity and using everybody's strengths to improve your strength. And you can't be more strong than the folks in this room. You young folks who don't have a history with the people in here, these folks in here, every thought that you have that makes any sense for black folks have been either written, spoken about, voice recorded from these folks in this room. Everything. That's amazing. The other piece is we need to write. We need to write. Within this room, there are several people that I've authored books with, and all this. They allow me to come along, sit while they wrote the book, all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line to it all is that collaborate with your buddies, your pals, your friends, people you don't like. Just get in there and start writing on things that would be positive for our people. And so when you start looking at that, it's just, let me tell you the weird part of that whole thing. We do this for free. Yes, sir. We do this for free. Now, one of these folks in this room get paid a nickel for doing the stuff I talked about. Isn't that something? Isn't that something?
Think about Joe. I think that the black social workers, that's about the only group I know in the nation that's totally black. They do everything. When I go to them, listen to them, and listen to the speakers, people they bring, I'm always shocked. So I've never been involved in anything like that. Wish I could. I've just always tried to, when I was at Benedict, spent a lot of time worrying my good buddy back there about, we established a black student union. It was strong for a while. But when you get new administrations, you always have problems. We, at that time, or even after that, we were able to bring consistently all the major speakers in the country to Benedict College. I can't think of anybody that didn't come to Benedict College. But students did it. I didn't. Well, they forced me into action. Sometimes when I didn't want to do things, they pushed me. But we used to be running for knowledge. Students were running for knowledge. But now it's hard. It's amazing how this system can change and change our behavior in terms of how we view reality and what we do. You have to remember, when things change, we change too.
Yes, sir.
We didn't do all of what we were doing before. And so we have to be conscious of our own behavior in terms of consistency, in terms of trying to change minds and create consciousness in the community. When I retired, I started an organization called the Comedic Institute for Health and Human Development. But I wanted to have a platform where at least we could try to keep trying to bring in people of consequence so we could keep trying to change the consciousness. I think we have to keep doing it and just keep doing it. No matter how disgusted we get and watching some of this stuff, we just have to keep doing it. Because one of the things that I've learned is that, and I can't imagine the number of people you've affected. I mean, in terms of their consciousness. You don't know when you're working with people, you don't know who you change. And you don't know what they're gonna do. And I hear from people all the time, old students, old people I've known, they're doing great things. And so individually, we have to keep doing it. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. We can't stop. Claflin spoke at, we honor 4 black women every year. She spoke at our banquet, and she talked about the need to keep plugging. And so I was about to quit. I was finna stop, seriously. I figured I got to be 80, that's enough. but after I listened to her, I can't stop. Can't stop. And then I said, yeah, wow, I really can't stop. Brother, here.
Okay, so our last question for you guys is, what do you think are the areas in which young people should apprentice and address to restore African American communities?
I'm gonna say one, go ahead and give it to them. I remember Asa Hilliard making the point, and I think it's very important, that whatever profession you're in, or whatever you do, you can put African-centered consciousness in it. There's no knowledge base that you can't do that. I enjoyed doing it. It was just beautiful for me. You know, I was teaching kinesiology, and I was studying the human movement. And think about us and human movement, my God. I mean, it was just, to put our stuff in that, oh Lord. But you can do it with anything. I mean, mathematics, my God, oh Lord. I mean, it's just so much you can do. I don't care what profession you're in. It can be whatever, but you can infuse African-centered thought into it.
I have to say ditto to everything Dr. Gunn just said. I don't care what your major is. I don't care what your philosophy is. I don't care what you think. Our people need you. They need your mind. They need your body. They need your commitment. So whatever area, strive like the old folks used to tell us when we were children. If you're gonna be a dish digger, you be the best dish digger in the country. If you're gonna be a street sweeper, that you can eat off that street. Doesn't matter. So in essence, you know, the only thing we can do, this is, I think we need to be dedicated, my generation. We need to be in a situation where we see you as our sacred trust to the world. And if you are our sacred trust, which I truly believe, then we're gonna do everything to teach you to be that best street sweeper. Because we've talked about examples and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line has always been that our job is to train that next generation, prepare that next generation to understand, here's the job I leave to you. This is what we've done, but here's what we left to you. And so you carry it forward, because, I know that one day we're gonna get reparations. I know one day that, we're gonna be a well people again. But I know that I may not even be here to see that. But I'm working toward that.
That's right.
But my job is to encourage you to continue the job.
Well, I think both of you have really put it on the spot. But I would just add, the thing that I would add is organize.
Yes.
And organize, not organize to serve itself, but organize to serve our collective self. Because we have that missing among us. Organize to the point, not, again, as I said earlier, organize for the purpose of coming to a common agreement and a common movement, a common understanding about what is important among us. Unfortunately, I've said to OC and a few others that in Atlanta, we probably have 15 to 20 different Pan-Africanist groups standing alone from each other. That is not the way to get power among us. And so it's important that we begin to organize in such a way that we pull each other together, even if I can't stand your smell, come together anyway. Because it's important that we're not doing it for me. We're doing it for us. And so organizing becomes extremely important for us. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Vivian?
Oh, I was just saying, last week, the week before last, the Pan-African group at Carolina had such a meeting to talk about the divide, separation between African Americans, continental Africans, and these were young people talking about what can we do to destroy that. But it was interesting that the African students kept calling themselves Africans and calling us Black Americans. And I was like, even within that consciousness, we have to work on that. And that they also talked about the preconceived notions we have about each other, which was an amazing, crazy discussion about what we thought about each other. And I was the oldest person, I don't know why I thought people, I saw it because you all sent the notice out to South Carolina. And I ended up, giving my opinion because they made us talk at the table. And to talk about, well, they are so removed and distant from actual visualization, experiencing things that I can remember sitting on the back of the bus. I can remember having lived at the top of the Fox State downtown Columbia. I can remember when there was a black fair and a white fair. So that memory is still there. I remember when those girls were killed at the church in Alabama. My dad took us downtown and was marching around the state house, and we were thinking we were all going to jail because that's what we saw on TV. So I have the instant memory. What happened in their discussion about things is that I found that they were so dismissed and disconnected from what they thought we experienced, which was a long time ago. I was listening, talking to my friend about a situation where we were talking to young students and telling them to remember that, and the girl said to us, she said, so y'all remember slavery too? I'm like, wait. And so there's work to be, done with that, but I want to applaud you, the Carolina, for starting that same discussion. It was called the African Thanksgiving, and it was a wonderful thing to be a part of. And I wanted more elders to be there, so to give their talk to these young people. I'm not saying they need guidance in a negative way, but we have that work to do with young people to take this discussion further. So if you all had anything with organize that in Carolina, it was pretty fun. It was a wonderful beginning. But this thing about what we think about each other, how one group is smarter than the other, and that we don't like each other, it was, kind of a catharsis to get that out, because it's so true. It's not just among those young people, but even among some of us who think we're conscious. We have these preconceived whatever kind of notions about each other, who's worthy of getting called an African.
What's in the name? And words have meaning. And if that is true, then what we need to do is watch our verbiage. I don't use the word black, because we're not black. We're African. The European, of course, he wasn't white. He made white. He made a collective whiteness to bring those Europeans together. And then imposed that on the world. And of course, how it impacts us, we say we're black. Some of us want to be white, but some of us want to be black because it's the opposite of white, but it's imitating white. It's imitating, it ain't African. They don't want to be African, they want to be black. They want the trappings of being white, the car, the clothes, the money, the job, but they want to be African, they want to be black. Stephen A. Smith, come on, the prime example. Come on. You know? So, in this verbiage, I maintain that we need to be African. African is the noun. There's a word that goes in front of African to describe the kind of African that she is. In America, we are American African. If I was a Jamaican, I'm a Jamaican African. If I'm in England or London or England, I'm an English African. You see what I'm saying? Ghanaian African, Nigerian African, because we're one African. And one of the things that the European understands clearly, if Africa unites, it's over for their ass. They know it.
Yes, sir.
Because Africa still has, always has, and will continue to have all of the resources that everybody wants, think they can't do it out, and they don't want to pay for it. That's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? I'm dead serious. I don't wear this hat for nothing. Make Africa home again. Come on. I'm dedicated. I told you earlier I was sovereignty. I believe in Africans running their own stuff. And it begins with how we think. And the words we use. See, I love us. About 40-some years ago, I fell in love with us. And I continue to do so. So when I started wearing grand boobas and kufis and daichis, it wasn't no fad. It was because of my consciousness. When I changed my name, when I told my family, I'm moving to Africa. Because that's how I feel. Because for to me, the European suffers from cognitive dissonance. They believe they're superior. There's nothing we can do or say to correct that. Nothing. They are going to do what they're going to do. They suffer from cognitive dissonance. Another Caucasian lady, in the light of all that was happening, came up with a term called white fragility. They're fragile. They don't believe. They don't want to believe all the evil that they have created. They want to think they're good Christians. In fact, they want to believe that what they have done is good for humanity. Just the other day, I saw a piece with this European who was talking about the inferiority of us. And women. They shouldn't be professors. And black people are inferior. And I shouldn't be fired from my professor job because I said that. Right. You see that? But what I'm saying is, we need to look at the verbiage. I remember when I talked to Greg, and I think that Francis, I said, you know, you've been on Fathead Brother Martin's program. You're the conscious brother on this program, along with those other right-wingers. Yeah. But he keep calling us slaves. We're not slaves. Every time you hear somebody say, we're not slaves, we're captives. We're captives. A slave is somebody or something that submits its will to a master. We never submitted. We talk all the time about us resisting, us revolting, over 400 recorded votes, let alone the ones that were not recorded. We were not slaves, but the European keeps pumping that up, don't he? The slaves. Hell, I watched a cartoon the other day with Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam. Come on there. What you doing? You pretend you Abraham Lincoln. What does I hear you beating slaves? It's a constant indoctrination. Yes. It's a 24/7, 365 of images and notions of your inferiority. We must control the narrative. That's why I love what Kaepernick did last week. He took the narrative away from the NFL because he knew they were trying to jam him. Okay? And he took it away. He did a coup. You know, he controlled it. And that's what we must do as a people. Control our narrative. We must write it, and we must give it to our students. The bottom line is, I'll be explaining in a minute, Papa, is that in the educational process, it begins when these children are young, and it continues on. Because we're about to go out, but if they're going to go through the same stuff, that's crazy. That's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I just told you, the Europeans suffer from cognitive dissonance and hegemony, or hegemony. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine. And he's serious about it. They're serious. Just like, I'm a gunman. It's just like the British. I hate the British. They were the ones that did the most damage. But yet, what is their image today? The royals. Look at the queen. Oh, look at the prince. Oh, now they got a multicultural person in the lineage. And yet they have done the most damage on this planet. But they control the narrative. And one of the biggest one of the biggest entities to help them is the United States. This country is the military and intellectual arm of European, Caucasian, I don't use supremacy, because they ain't supreme, but they are extreme. So it's European, Caucasian extremism, racism, because there's no such thing as race, there's only one race, and that's us, the human race, of which we're the fathers and mothers of, and privilege, because they've made themselves privileged. So, if we begin to think, when I hear a word, I automatically substitute it. Excuse me. I don't use nigga or bitch. I cuss if people look at me. But I don't use those words to describe our people. I try to make sure when I see those words, when I see slave, I automatically put captive. When I see black, I automatically put African. When I see white, Caucasian, European, you train yourself like we must train our young. Imagine if our young started to begin to do that. They would start to get a visualization, because a word changes the mind. You see a vision. When I say those words, I used to work with kids. I used to be a firefighter. We work a day, off 2 days. On my off days, I would go to school and work with our children. One of the things to tell them to do, close your eyes. I'm going to say some words to you, and you tell me whose face you put on it. I say welfare, no-fit father, drug addict, drug dealer, criminal. Honestly, whose face you put on that? Because you've been trained to believe that's who you are. You see? So I'm saying is that the words we use, the verbs we use, we must recognize that they have that kind of meaning, and they continue to impress upon the minds of our people. And that's how we think of ourselves. Because why do you think the word nigga is so widely used? That wasn't widely used when I was coming up. But it became widely used in the 70s and 80s. Because the movie industry, the Europeans has done that. I know I would say, well, we own that word, that's our word. You know, what was it? What you call said, you came up with an acronym, right? Nigga, never ignorant, getting goals accomplished, right? Never ignorant. I said, well, if that's the case, I'll be like, nigga, every day. If we were never ignorant, if we were getting our goals accomplished. But if we erase ourselves, eradicate ourselves in that mindset, we can do it.
One of the things about communication, it always has to be on two levels. One, what you tell the public, and the other, what you tell your family. Now, the issue is this. We need, as a family of Africans, to sit down and dialogue about some very truthful, hateful, hurtful things. That is not a conversation for nobody else.
That's right. That's right.
We coined the phrase AUSA, which means the Africans in the United States of America. We're a separate tribe. We're a little bit different. So those of us who are a little bit different get with the continental folks and the Caribbean folks, and we put our cards on the table because we're talking to family.
That is the wisdom of those days. So these are the tools we need to be telling each other as we move forward. So I beg you, as elders of your community, reach out to our community, then they'll sit together, which we're already doing, to instill oneness, to build a common Pan-African
I'm being asked, do I want to say some final words? The final words are, I think we're ending on a real high note. What we need most of all is the unity among us.
Yes.
And the way we're going to get that is to face-to-face, face the truth as we talk with each other. And aim for coming together as opposed to looking for the differences among us. Because they've already tried to point those out in the media, as someone has said, as well as in sermons and in all kinds of ways. And so it's important that we honor the fact that we need to step forward and begin to organize and talk to each other and tell the truth to each other. Young brother, I want to honor you. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I want to say that I'm happily grateful to be here, and I can feel the aura of like rich African history. Like this is borderline amazing for me to be here and be in the presence of all my fellow Africans and be in the presence of all this heritage. And I just want to say that basically, as Africans, we created so much. We created so much culture. And I also look back at the music culture because I'm into music, I love music. And it's amazing how we start the blues, then led the jazz, and led to everything else. Like we created all the music that is modern of today. We created so much art, we created so much poetry. We are amazing people. We are wonderful people. And you said so much. You said so much. I was like, oh my God, like back to American imperialism. When you said that, the poem called "The White Man's Burden" popped in my mind about how Europeans or white people want to basically rule the world. They want to go unanswered towards multiple people. So I'm just happy to be here. I'm
going to pass this back to the chairperson because she's standing there. I do see, if you make it one quick comment then.
Yes, sir.
One quick.
Well, it's more of a question, but as you start to see the trend of American culture, you're starting to see what we like to call the darkening of America. You're starting to see much more black and brown representation. So I just a quick question, need some quick answers. I hope you can answer. What do you believe we could accomplish, especially when it comes to a more political representation in American culture? Bringing African culture into American culture through a political basis, and of course spreading it to the masses. It's like he was saying, controlling the narrative. And I believe that would be one of the fastest, most effective ways to controlling the narrative. And I just wanted your comments on that.
Before I yield to my elders here, I think that when you hear this about the browning of America, you have to understand that unless those brown people, black people are in this group, it's the further whitening of America.
And of course, getting the right people in office.
Well, the only person to determine the right person in the office is you and everybody you influence. That's number one. Tomorrow, if every white person got on a rocket ship and flew to Mars and left us here by ourselves, we'd be in just as bad shape as when we were here. Now, the there's work to do to develop that control of the communication thing. It is not easy, and it's gonna take some work, and it's gonna take some blood, sweat, and tears. And sometimes when you walk out of those meetings, you will disagree with what everybody says. But you keep going. See, I don't know what it's gonna be like when it's a totally browned out America. But I do know if we go with the same thought patterns we have now, we in deep trouble. But if we somehow can change the narrative, change what we think, change what we do, and make those all congruent, then I think we'll go further and farther.
I want to close by just saying, I think that the theme that we're ending up with is that we need to talk with each other, we need to aim for agreement, we need to aim for the empowerment of ourselves, and forget the political bait that's usually put out there in front of us. Because there's always that bait out there that we make to distract us from what our major goal is. We need to determine that without the bait.
I feel good about myself. I feel good about the people all around me. I feel good about the people all around me. Goodness all around me. I feel goodness all around me. It'll follow me for the rest of my life. It'll follow me for the rest of my life. I walk with goodness. I talk with goodness. I talk with goodness. I feel real good. I feel real good. Better best. Better best. Never let it rest. Never let it rest. You're good as you're better. You're good as you're better. You're better.